Welcome back, guys. So now the evaluation edition has been downloaded on my server, and you can see in the background in my download folder, it has 1.1 gig file, ISO file that I can easily mount to, and now I can install the SQL Server on this server, right? So that's how you can download the offline installer on your machine and later on repurpose it for other machines as well. So let's double click on it. Now you can see as soon as we have double clicked, it has mounted it on my machine, which is very simple and sweet. I'm just going to right click on the setup and run it as an administrator, although I don't need to run it as an administrator because I'm already logged on as an administrator. But obviously, if you are working with another account with the least privileges account and you want to run it with administrator privileges, so you can right click and the option is still there. So now the good thing that the installer interface hasn't changed much, so it's very similar like we have seen it since 2000, I would say 8 or 2005. Microsoft has slightly changed couple of things within the installer, but layout is almost similar from last, I would say, a decade. So let's go to click on the installation option, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click on the new server installation, or I can add the existing feature to the existing one if later on I want to run the installer again, right? So you can see now, if you remember, I mentioned Microsoft already split the reporting services separately from the installation. So you need to configure the SQL Server reporting services in a different way. Previously, it was part of the main installer, and you can configure it during your installation. For somehow Microsoft take it out. I don't know why, but maybe because SQL Server reporting service is now moving towards the Power BI. So maybe there are some licensing things that Microsoft would like to change, or they might merge reporting services with Power BI, or introduce a new product. Who knows? We'll see very soon if anything comes out from the Microsoft team. Management tool, that's simple. SQL Server Management Studio that we use to our development activities. Data tools that include obviously the integration services, reporting services, and analysis services project. The other tools are disabled because I believe it's an evaluation edition, or because we only have single server machine and it is available in the cluster environment where we have multiple nodes running under one machine or one cluster, right? So we don't need to worry about those two. We will see later on in future, if we want, we can do a quick demo in the cloud environment, because clustering we can really enjoy seeing in action within the cloud environment. So by saying it now, hit the first option. To begin the show, we are going to install SQL Server 22 on Windows Server 22 edition. So that's the difference, where with this series, we are now purely switching towards the 2022 environment. It's just going to take a couple of minutes, just because the preparing the environment or installer. And then you start asking us different questions. So yeah, I'm going to use the evaluation. You can see beside the evaluation, we have the developer and express. And I mentioned developer is bringing all the features, and it has no licensing attached with it, with the condition that you are not going to use this version for any business or productive activities, right? As long as you are just using it for your non-productive, your learning perspective, you are using it only for those purposes, you are good to go, right? But as soon as you start using it for any kind of your business related activities, that's where we have a problem. So make sure if you are using the developer, because developer edition has all the features that Microsoft has provided, right? So they need to assure that you are not using this product for any professional purposes. If you want to use it for the professional purposes, we can go with a proper licensing scheme, and Microsoft provide you a very good license based on your needs, right? So this developer Express is a very thin version. You don't need to pay for license. Even you can use Express in your production environment, but obviously Express comes with a lot of limitations, right? So keep in mind that Express is not a very good option for your production environment. And evaluation edition is for I think 6 months trial. You can use it, and after 6 months, it's going to ask you to apply the license because the evaluation period is going to be completed, or you can, just delete the virtual machine and recreate it if you want to continue your testing, right? So pretty straightforward. This time, let's continue with the evaluation, because if I remember last time we did the developer edition, I just want to show you the evaluation edition this time. So let's click on the evaluation. Yes, I'm going to accept the terms and condition. I don't have any option beside accepting it. I'll leave it at this stage because I want to apply the updates later on by ourselves. So we'll see how we can do it. So now it's just downloading the set of files. All good. So just ignore window file rule. It's just a warning, not the error. All other features are good. Green. Now let's hit next. That's a new feature. I haven't actually seen it, but in future we'll see if we can utilize that feature and create a quick demo for it. All right, so I think I can see what's the purpose, but just to keep this video simple, I'm not going to go in detail. I'm just keeping it unchecked. Let's go to the next one. And now we are coming back on our feature selection page. I'm just going to use database engine services replication because we only have simple single machine. Data quality I'm going to install, data quality client, integration services I'm going to use, and I'm going to install master data services. So these are the major services. Scale out master, scale out worker I'm not going, because we are not scaling our integration server services on multiple machines. So we'll keep that configuration to the single machine at the moment. So you can change the root directory because I only have one drive on this machine. So I'm just going to keep it on my C drive, but it is recommended that if you can keep it separate to your OS drive, that would be great, because that will, improve the efficiency of SQL Server. So it's all good. Let's click on the feature rules now. Yeah, default instance, I'm not going to install at the moment the name instance, but we can install multiple instance if you want. If our machine is very heavy, we can use it for multi-purposes, and that's where we can install more than one SQL instances if we want to. But I'm good. I'm just using the default instance. Click next. So that screen is quite interesting because it has two very important aspect of the installation. One is the service account, which I'm not going to change in this installation, but obviously if this server is going to be part of the Active Directory or our domain network, it is highly recommended to use the Active Directory account, not like the server based NT accounts or networking services account, because through those accounts you can control the permission, and you can apply the group control policies on your account, and that will increase the security of your database services, right? Because obviously we need to make sure if we are using one particular account for behind the database engine services, we need to restrict that account, especially from the network permission perspective, right? So if that account has been compromised, we can still control the damage, right? A similar way as SQL Server agent, it doesn't need similar permission as of the SQL Server database engine or SQL Server of integration services. I've seen in many installation, people just use one account against all the services, and the worst case worse, I've seen people are using the highly privileged account against those services, which is not very ideal and not recommended by Microsoft. So keep these things in mind. Obviously, if you have your dev environment which is isolated and you can see the developers are not, you know, overlapping with other environment, then it's fine, you can allow the additional permission. But obviously with the UAT environment, with the pre-prod environment and production environment, the story is completely different, right? Permissions are very different and the policies are very different compared to our dev environment or test environment. All right, so collation, I'm going to stick to the default one, but you can change it. It really depends upon your region and country where you are and what kind of, you know, code pages for your textual information has been used. So itself is a deep topic, and if you have a different collation setup on your database, there are a lot of challenges while you are writing the queries between, you know, two different collation based databases, right? Because you have to collate the information before you can join it, which is, you know, impact on the cleanliness of your code, right? So keep that in mind, that always try to use the standard collation while you are setting up your SQL Server. Okay, I'm going to use the mix mode, but you can, if you have a Active Directory integrated with your server and you don't want to use SQL Server authentication, you can stick with the Windows Server authentication mode. But if you have some use cases where you want to use the SQL Server based authentication as well, which is obviously the SQL Server username and password, which is highly unrecommended or not recommended by the security team, because, you know, username password, they are slowly now moving away in the enterprises or in the professional environment. So try to, you know, avoid username and password and try to use Windows level authentication wherever you can, because that will increase the security of your environment, right? But just for this demo, I'm just going to use the mix mode, which means I'm going to use the SQL Server based authentication as well, and I'm going to add my current user, which is obviously local admin of my machine. I'm going to add it as a administrator of my SQL Server, right? So that's from the authentication perspective. Data directories, I'm not going to change it. Theoretically, we have a data drive where we normally store all our data files. So that path is going to be mentioned in here. But because I only have one drive, I'm not going to change it. Same way, temp drive. Temp, normally we have a separate temp drive because temp drive required its own IO. And if it is, you know, it is struggling to get the resources, or there's a lot of contention on single drive, you are not going to get a very good performance from the temp DB, which might impact on your query and your dev workload. So that's why it's always advisable to keep your temp database on a separate drive, and try to, you know, add multiple files. You can see Microsoft have already given us a default number, which is obviously 3 files with 8 MBs, and autogrowth is 64 MBs. But you can change it, and you can, you know, you can now see you can add multiple folders. So SQL Server automatically span the load on these files while it is, you know, handling your temp database workload while processing your query. So right now we'll just keep it on a single drive. max stop, we can keep it default. We are not going to change it. Memory, many people, they just keep it to default, which is not recommended, because in that way SQL has full provision. It will keep consuming your operating system memory until unless it reaches to its limit. Now you can see the high limit or upper limit is very high. So in order to control it, you need to specify the upper bound. So for example, if on my system, if I just look into it, if on my system I have, for example, let's say 11 gig, or maybe, yeah, I have 10 gig. So what I can do, I can go and I can allocate 9 gig. So, or 8 gig. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to multiply 9, multiply by 1024, 9216. The max my machine, or sorry, SQL Server can get 9216, right? So that's how we can control the memory usage of SQL Server. SQL Server is a hungry memory hungry beast. So make sure you are controlling in a way that it won't impact on your server. So that's temporary file stream. We are not using it. We are all good. Let's click on, okay, I think we need to accept. Yeah, all good. We just need to accept. I think now we are all good. So based on all our selection, the SQL Server visit, it has created this file. You can open it up and you can save it and you can use it in the later installation. So all you need to do once, if you want to just install another SQL Server with a similar configuration, you can run the command line installer, and you can just reference this file, and it's going to read all the configuration through this file and set up the SQL Server based on this these parameters, right? Which is very handy for the administrators who are managing hundreds of SQL Server machine. For them, if they want to do any kind of administrative work or management work, these configuration files are very helpful. So let's keep it in our operating system drive, and we might refer it back in future. So I think from this point onward, we are pretty good, because what's going to happen now, it's going to actually evaluate all good, and now the installation process has been started. So I won't hold you back. Let the SQL Server install the SQL Server database engine or other feature on this server, and I'll connect you again once the installation process is finished. Please put any comments or any question if you have. Otherwise, I do believe you enjoy the journey of setting up SQL Server 22 on Windows Server 22 machine. Thanks for watching, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Stay tuned.